So I wanna tell you a little quick story here about sometimes when God reaches out and asks us for something, what that might look like in our hoarding of things. And I'm not telling you this story to lift myself up, because I'm not the guy to be doing that for sure. But the problem is with stories is I only know my own for the most part, unless I get lucky and hear one about somebody else. But here a few years back, the very first Parker I ever owned, um, I thought quite a lot of it. And we had this young family in our church that had a premature baby, and it ended up in the hospital and cost them a ton of money. And I wanted to help, and it was that time of year in March or so when I was calving cows. I'd been out of work for 4 or 5 months already, and other than a little bit of cowboy work I had, a little bit of saddle work, and God put it on my heart that, you know what, you got that Parker. and I really didn't want to give it, but I said to myself, well, it ain't mine, it's God's. I'm gonna see what I can get for it. So I had to go into town for some other things, and there's a pretty good pawn shop in town, and I took this gun there and showed it to them, and I decided that I was going to try to get $500 for it. That's about what I'd paid for it. And so I decided, I told the Lord if I got $500 for it, I was gonna give it all to this couple to help with any way I could. At that point, it didn't seem like much, but it was something. Anyhow, I got to the pawn shop, and here they had a canoe out front. Man, I wanted a canoe. It was a old town canoe, just what I needed for duck hunting. And I thought, well, maybe another time. So I go inside and show him my gun, and they're him hauling around and kicking the trash can and trying to decide what they can pay me for it. And finally they said, well, what would you take for it? I said, well, man, I said, if I could get $500 and that canoe. And they scratched their head around a little bit, and of course they had to go in the back and talk to the manager and go through all that song and dance. Turned out I ended up walking away from there with $500 in my shirt pocket and a canoe on the back of my pickup. So there's one time that God, I guess he kind of rewarded me for doing what he wanted from me there. So I'm just going to tell you that it wasn't too long after that I found another Parker that I could afford, and later in the spring when I had some money I could spend, and so yeah, so Parkers have always been. I don't have that one anymore either. So there you go. I've owned a lot of Parkers, and they're by far the gun that excites me the most of all the vintage guns I get my hands on. And I don't know why that is, because they're just another gun, but yeah, they're for sure my number one gun to own if I could only own one, I guess. Thanks for listening.